Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to our latest Star Wars video. So we're going to be talking about the Emperor in this video. We know that Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, he has various guises throughout the Star Wars saga. We know he is coming back in episode 9. Ian McDiarmid, who plays Emperor Palpatine, is confirmed to be in episode 9. We heard his voice at the end of the episode 9 teaser trailer. So we know he's going back for Rise of Skywalker, and I'm going to give you my little theory about how I think the Emperor is coming back. We saw him definitively killed off at the end of Return of the Jedi, so how could they be resurrecting him? Go over it in a second. Before I get on with the video, just say that if you enjoy my Star Wars content on this channel, please like, share and subscribe and let us know that you're enjoying what we're doing. Don't forget to use the comments to let us know if you're enjoying videos, and also to comment on the theories and to give us your theory on what you think the Emperor is doing back in The Rise of Skywalker. So, as I say, we saw the Emperor killed off at the end of Return of the Jedi. Darth Vader picked him up, threw him down the Death Star shaft to his death, and that seemingly was the end of Emperor Palpatine. However, we know that he's coming back in episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So how are they bringing him back? Well, there are various ways they could do it. They could bring him back in a flashback. So, for example, you could have the ghostly spirit of Anakin Skywalker talking to another character and relaying some past event that happened between himself and Palpatine, and you might see that as a flashback. So that's one way they could do it. Another way would be as a hologram. So there's a theory that maybe Kylo Ren has a hologram of the Emperor relaying some sort of information, but he keeps playing over and over again. That's another way that they could do it. But to me, that seems pretty insignificant. Really, I'm not sure it will warrant this level of attention that Lucasfilm and Disney has given to the return of Palpatine. I'm not sure you'd flag it up in the trailer as much as they have done. If it was just going to be a simple flashback or a hologram that isn't really of a great deal of significance, I'm not sure you want to bring back Ian McDiarmid with such fanfare either, if it's a relatively insignificant sort of return, maybe just one film with a brief walk-on part. So to me, it feels like Palpatine, it has to be doing something quite significant in this film. Yet how could that be if a character is killed off by Darth Vader? Well, my theory is that I think we're going to journey into the netherworld of the Force in The Rise of Skywalker. I think we could journey through the netherworld, and maybe lurking there in the netherworld of the Force will be the evil spirit of Palpatine, and possibly even Palpatine's master, Darth Plagueis. So I want to go to this website, Disney Star Wars is Dumb, WordPress.com. Don't worry about the title of the name of the website. They have quotes about George Lucas's sequel trilogy vision. So there's a lot of information in this page. I haven't got time to go through all of it. There's a couple of quotes I want to point out. So the first one comes from Mark Hamill in an interview that he gave in 1983, talking about the possibility of coming back for the sequel trilogy. So he's asked by the interviewer about the possibility of doing sequels to the original trilogy in the year 2004. And Mark says this: it's either going to be on another plane of existence or not the same character. When you see the ending of Return of the Jedi, you'll see why it has to be the last one, period. Why Return of the Jedi has to be the last one of the original trilogy. And that, of course, is because Darth Vader dies after he saves his son and returns as Anakin Skywalker to the light side of the Force. But the quote there I think is quite interesting. It's either going to be on another plane of existence. So that's the first quote. The second quote comes from George Lucas himself. I think this dates all the way back to when the original Star Wars came out in 1977, or very shortly after, maybe 1978, 1979, something like that. So George Lucas, in another interview talking about the possibility of a sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8 and 9, says this: the other one, and he's referring to the sequels, what happens to Luke afterwards is much more ethereal. I have a tiny notebook full of notes on that. If I'm really ambitious, I could proceed to figure out what would have happened to Luke. Key word there is ethereal or ethereal. So ethereal, to me, kind of like is talking about being much more spiritual, perhaps being much more mystical, if you like. And putting that together with Hamill's quote about being on another plane of existence, I've always thought what's like to happen in the sequel trilogy is that we would see a journey into the netherworld of the Force. So we've only ever seen Force ghosts from the physical realm, if you like. We see Obi-Wan Kenobi's spirit coming to Hoth and then Dagobah in the Empire Strikes Back. And then at the end of Return of the Jedi, we see the spirits of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and Anakin Skywalker on Endor. We see their spirits to Luke, smiling at Luke. We've never actually seen Force ghosts on the spirit side, on their own side, if you like. I always thought was probably going to happen in the sequel trilogy, at least in George Lucas's incarnation of it, is that we will probably see the death of Luke Skywalker. So I wasn't actually overly surprised when Luke died at the end of The Last Jedi. I was very surprised at how they did it. It's done very, very poorly, but I have always been expecting that Luke will probably die in the sequel trilogy, either in the middle movie, at the end of the middle movie, or perhaps in the final movie, in episode 9, but probably early on in the final movie, allowing us this journey into the netherworld. Now, why would we have to journey into the netherworld? Well, we know that Lucas is a great fan of Joseph Campbell, the philosopher and author of A Hero's Journey and Hero with 1,000 Faces, and we know that one of the great myths of all time is the journey from life to death, if you like, the journey from the living into the netherworld, into the beyond. It's one of the classic sort of journeys that lots of characters take through mythology. We know that George Lucas takes many cues from mythology, and this is discussed in Joseph Campbell's work. So the journey into the netherworld would happen as part of the hero's journey, a progression, if you like, of the hero's journey. So the original Star Wars trilogy is essentially a classic example of the hero's journey. You take Luke Skywalker beginning as an untrained Jedi Knight, so just a regular kind of person. He goes on this adventure and becomes more powerful, becomes the hero, takes the hero's journey, and eventually finishes up as we see it in the original trilogy, defeating evil. But actually, if you watch it as a broader whole, the sixth George Lucas Star Wars film is Anakin Skywalker who is taking the hero's journey, albeit he takes a long detour through the dark side, becomes the villain for a large part of his hero's journey. So there's really, in the original and in the sort of six original Star Wars films, the prequels and the classics, if you like, there are really two heroes' journeys going on. There's Luke Skywalker taking the classic hero's journey through the classic trilogy. And then there's Anakin Skywalker taking a hero's journey from the beginning of the prequels right way through to the end of Return of the Jedi. And he takes a much more deviated route, if you like, because for a large part of his hero's journey, he actually becomes the villain. He becomes the chief villain, but he does eventually arrive at the point where he completes the hero's journey and he finishes up fulfilling the prophecy and killing the Emperor and bring balance to the Force, or so we think. Anyway, getting back to the sequel trilogy, so the reason Luke would have to journey into the netherworld of the Force would be, or the netherworld, the world beyond the living, if you like, into the world of the dead. The reason he would have to do that is because he's got to be a continuation of the hero's journey, if you like. And to do that, you would have to have some sort of threat in the netherworld. You would have to have some sort of conflict going on in the netherworld of the Force. So I've always thought it was probably likely that there would still be some sort of evil dark side spirit working away in the netherworld. Could that evil spirit be Palpatine's spirit, or possibly Darth Plagueis, or maybe both of them? Well, it certainly looks like Palpatine is definitely going to be back in this. Evidence, of course, is still out on any involvement of Darth Plagueis. But we have to come back to what Palpatine said in Revenge of the Sith, that Plagueis is the only Sith to learn how to cheat death. The power to cheat death is one that only Plagueis alone knows, but Palpatine tells Anakin that if we work together we can discover the secret. Possibly Palpatine knew more about the power to cheat death. I wonder if Plagueis had in fact passed that power on to his apprentice, to Palpatine, at some point before Palpatine eventually, of course, as we know, killed him in his sleep. So, is Palpatine's spirit still lurking in the netherworld? Does that mean that Luke has to journey into the netherworld to finally rid the galaxy of the spirit, the evil spirit of Emperor Palpatine, who is still trying to control things from beyond the world of the living, if you like? It's possible that this could also encompass other characters. So I've always wondered why only very specific, limited numbers of Jedi are able to retain their identities after death. So we've got Qui-Gon Jinn, we've got Yoda, we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, and eventually, of course, after he kills the Emperor, we've got Anakin Skywalker. There's only 4 Jedi, now presumably joined by Luke, a 5th, who have the power to retain their identities beyond death. Could it be that their spirits are retained because they are eventually going to have to go on this mission? Could it be that the Force itself is retaining these Jedi spirits after they die, because they're going to have to journey through the netherworld and defeat evil, possibly in the form of Palpatine, maybe with Darth Plagueis as well? That would be my theory for why Palpatine is coming back if George Lucas was doing these films. Now, what I would say is that with Disney and the Kathleen Kennedy incarnation of Lucasfilm, this is really, really risky stuff. So this is the kind of thing George Lucas would go for. He would go for something very bizarre, really out there, very extreme sort of storytelling to actually take the audience on this journey into the netherworld of the Force, and maybe have a climactic battle between good and evil in the netherworld of the Force, somewhere between heaven and hell. You would have this final conflict between between good, represented by the Jedi spirits, and evil, represented by the Sith, the remaining legacy of the Sith. I wouldn't necessarily say they're Sith spirits, because perhaps they are a sort of undead, if you like. Maybe they don't go to the spirit world. But you have some sort of conflict going on there in the Netherworld. Somewhere between heaven and hell, you would have this enormous battle between Jedi and Sith. And it would be conducted, as I say, within the Netherworld of Force. This is incredibly risky storytelling. How you would actually put that to screen would be very, very hard to do it and be able to pull it off. It is the kind of thing that George Lucas would do. I don't think it's the kind of thing Kathleen Kennedy or J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson or any of the people involved with Star Wars now would want to touch with a 10-foot barge pole. I don't think we want to go anywhere near this, really. But we know that what has happened with the sequel trilogy is that they have come to episode 9, and they basically, when they started episode 9, have no idea whatsoever what they're going to do with the final film of the sequel trilogy. So they've boxed themselves into a corner. They don't know what to do. And we know that J.J. Abrams has had discussions with George Lucas about episode 9. I just wonder whether, because they basically boxed themselves into this corner of not knowing where to go with episode 9, now called The Rise of Skywalker, I just wonder whether they have talked to George and at least partially incorporated the ideas of George Lucas about this, well, it's not going to be a sequel trilogy, but about this final film being much more ethereal, much more spiritual, much more mystical, if you like, and existing on another realm, or within another realm. So I just wonder whether, due to lack of anything else really to go on, whether they have had to move towards the George Lucas version or incarnation of the sequel trilogy. If they have, then that could explain why Palpatine would be coming back, if there's going to be this final sort of climactic battle between good and evil, between Jedi and Sith, in the Netherworld, whether there will be this final sort of journey through the Netherworld to once and for all rid the universe of the existing sort of legacy of the Sith and of Palpatine, possibly, although the jury would be much more out on Darth Plagueis as well. So it sounds very bizarre, but it's something that I've always thought is likely to happen in a George Lucas sequel trilogy, that you would explore the Netherworld, that you would explore the Jedi Force ghosts. It would explain why these specific Jedi have retained their identities after their deaths, which is something that we know is not available to most Jedi Knights. For example, Mace Windu gets killed by the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith, and we see nothing more or hear nothing more of him. There's only a very small number of Jedi who are able to do this. I've always thought the sequel trilogy will probably explain why they're able to do it, how they are able to do it, and it will probably involve a journey along with Luke Skywalker. So as I say, Luke's death was never particularly has surprised me, but it would probably involve a journey with Luke and the other Jedi spirits potentially into the Netherworld or through the Netherworld as they go on one last climactic battle to rid the world of, or rid the Star Wars universe of the legacy of the Sith in the form of some sort of existing energy or spirit, if you like, from Palpatine. Eventually, after we heard about Darth Plagueis in Revenge of the Sith, maybe from Darth Plagueis as well. It sounds out there, it sounds bizarre, and I say it's not the kind of storytelling that J.J. Abrams or Kathleen Kennedy would want to get involved with, but I think the evidence is growing that maybe that could be the way this is going to go. I may be completely wrong about this. It could turn out that Palpatine is just coming back as a flashback, and if so, then sorry about my sort of bizarre out there theory. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Am I onto something with this? Am I as crackers as George Lucas sometimes has appeared to be? Am I on the right wavelength of what George would have done? Do you think that there's no way that Disney and Kathleen and JJ will want to go anywhere near this stuff? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. We'll be back with more Star Wars content very, very soon. Thanks for watching.